nothing mattered to me anymore. Like I didn't care. Even the gym was one of those things that it is one of my therapy things. And I stopped going to the gym because I'm like, well, I'm not getting sleep, so I can't build muscle. What's the point? And so I was, really deep into it and trying to find all the answers. It was crazy how much it overtook my life. It sucks too because it just became, I guess, so dark. Even like with my kids, because I was trying to fix it. Once I truly not cared about it is when I slowly started coming out of it. And for people listening, I think the biggest thing was I was waiting to be healed. And I think that was a problem. I think there was a post I saw on the Instagram app too that talks about give up. Seriously, TJ, what am I gaining? I think that's what's so hard too, is our brain, like you just said, thinks it's protecting us, but in the way it's like everything is, we're making it worse. We're not gaining an hour of life by trying to solve this problem, Progress is, there's not an end date, or it's linear. That to me now looking back, it's like, it's so true. And then
it's so true.
Naturally, I just stopped monitoring, and you just got through 8 months of horrible nights. It's like, you're good. And then I just went on with my day, and I approached it just, I don't know, approaching it as a bad night and not identifying yourself with it is the game changer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another very special episode of Talking Insomnia. Today, we have with us TJ, and TJ has very graciously agreed to share with us his insomnia story. We're so glad that you agreed to do that and share with our community. TJ reached out to Daniel, and Daniel reached out to me, and you went through our BedTyme app and read all the books and kind of had your own journey here. So we're really excited to hear your story today. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to be here, and never thought I would be here, but I'm so glad.
Yeah, I know that feeling. When I finally made my recovery video, I was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. So I very much relate to that. Well, let's just go ahead and jump right in. And without any further ado, why don't you tell us how insomnia began for you and just walk us through your story?
Sure. So I'd probably say about 8 months ago, I was just living my normal life. My wife and I, we have a condo down in St. George, and my family and I and my kids were like, let's go take a trip. So we went to St. George, and we stayed
where I live, by the way, just a side note.
That's true. Once you found out, Allie lives in Utah like me. Yeah. And so went to St. George, and we were going to stay there for about 4 days. And one of those nights, I noticed I am a very health conscious person. So I eat very clean. I, eat a lot of whole foods. And so, but I ask for good balance too, right? Like if my family and I go out for pizza or ice cream, I'm not one of those people that I'm like, right. So I have a good healthy balance. And so one night we went and got my daughter, it's Pink Box Donuts in St. George. Mm-hmm. We went and got some donuts, and it was a little later. It was like 10 o'clock. So I had a couple of donuts, and then after like an hour, my stomach was like, shoot, why did I eat those? Right? Just kind of grumbling, didn't settle well, had a stomach ache. And by the time it was like 11:30, and then my wife and I went to bed around 12 o'clock, and typical, just laying down, and all of a sudden my stomach was just killing, hurting, tossing and turning. Got up to go to the restroom, laid back down. And then all of a sudden it was like 2 o'clock. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot sleep. And then I was like, looked at the clock, and then it was like 3:30. I'm like, how am I still awake? And I'm like, that's why I don't eat junk food. I was like kind of mad at myself because I'm like, this is why I don't eat, all that junk. And so, finally fell asleep, woke up, just didn't even think anything about it. I'm like, that was weird. I'm like, I'm done eating that stuff. Next night I was fine. So then the next night we're in St. George, I was fine as well. And then we came home, and for the next 2 weeks, just totally normal. And then one night during, like I just was mentioning to you, and we moved from Bountiful to here, we were living, since this house needs to be remodeled, we're flipping it, we're remodeling it, we're like gutting the whole house to be new. We were living in my parents' basement with me, my wife, and 3 kids. So it was kind of like overwhelming.
Right.
And one night it happened again. It was just like I was lay down, go to sleep, and I'm like, just waiting. I'm like, wow, weird. And like 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock hit. And then I woke up and I was like, why did that happen again? And I put so much focus on that just last night. Cause I'm like, I didn't eat anything. I ate healthy. And so I was like, it was definitely crossing my mind throughout the day. Cause I'm like, I don't know what I didn't have, like, I'm doing the same thing I've done my whole life.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, and then I go to sleep that night again. And then next thing you know, it's the same thing. It was like 3 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock. So I'm laying in bed. I'm going to bed at like 11. So I was laying in bed for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what is happening? And then once the second night it happened, that's where I was 100%. I got to figure it out.
Right.
And what's crazy about this too is I have, like, on my social media, I'm very into health and fitness. And so I've always have all the box checked. I go to the gym, right? 5 times a week. I eat healthy foods. I've always gotten good sleep. I drink plenty of water. I've been getting morning sunlight my whole life. It's always been a thing for me. I go out and ground. Even nighttime, there's times where I like to go out on the grass and watch the sunset. So this was like stuff I always did prior. So with all the bedtime tips, I was like, maybe I'll just recheck those things, right? The very typical common ones.
The sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so they're obviously, right, do this. I'm like, I'm doing that. Do this. And I'm like, I'm doing that. And so I was like, what am I missing? I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, I've got to figure it out. And then there was nothing. And then I noticed some was like, take a hot bath, the typical sleep hygiene. I'm like, I guess I've never taken a hot bath before. So the next night, I tried to take a hot bath, and then it felt super relaxing. And then, obviously it's all I was thinking about was like, am I sleeping tonight? So lay down, and then the same thing happens. It's 2:30, and then all of a sudden I woke up my wife. I'm like, Kirst, I'm like, something's wrong. My wife's name's Kirsten, sorry. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I have like this stomach feel like where, like, if you like look over a cliff, I'm like, and you get that shooting up your stomach. I'm like, something is happening with my stomach. So I was thinking I'm like, there's something wrong. Like, and so I started went on Reddit, and I was typing that in. I was like, falling asleep, but you feel jolt in your stomach. Uh-huh. And then Reddit was, I've seen this before too. That was a nightmare. That made everything 10 times worse.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was just like people of like, I've been dealing with this forever, or I've had this X, Y, and Z. Right. And so, and then from there, I think it got 10 times worse. I was like, because it was so frustrating too, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And so probably another week goes by of the same thing. Falling asleep, takes me 4 or 5 hours. And then it was like, I was at work, and obviously those thoughts came. I'm like, I made it my whole life. I identified with it. It was the only thing I thought about. I was not even present with my kids. I wasn't even present with, work. Luckily, I work a remote job. And so that was a blessing that I didn't have to be in an office. But I'm like, nothing mattered to me anymore. Like, I didn't care. Even the gym is one of those things that it is one of my therapy things. And I stopped going to the gym because I'm like, well, I'm not getting sleep, so I can't build muscle. What's the point? Mm-hmm. And so I was, really deep into it and trying to find all the answers. Then I went the typical route, went and saw a doctor. And the doctor, was like, the typical, oh yeah, what are you experiencing? And he actually what I really appreciate about him is he is my holistic doctor. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I recommend doing therapy. He's like, mostly
Mm-hmm.
medication's garbage. And
Mm-hmm.
he was like, I can give you some if you want, but he was like, he's like, if there was a magic sleeping drug, the whole world would be taking it.
Right. Nobody would have insomnia.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a drug
Yeah.
for perfect sleep. No, everyone would take it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, I recommend therapy. And I was like, that's a good idea. And so my wife and I have a therapist that we see every once in a while. And so I've set some meetings with him, and hard enough with him, my therapist, he kind of was like, he's like, gave me some sleep hygiene. And I was like, oh my God.
I know. Yeah.
I was like, that's not what I want. Like, I didn't tell him that, but I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that. And then, he was big on EMDR. So
Okay.
kind of like the bilateral tapping, or there's like a light and you go back and forth. And you're probably familiar with it, but you want to bring up the feelings of the fear of insomnia, of whatever your problem is.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and honestly, I didn't feel anything. But mine, it was, I was just like, it was crazy how much it overtook my life. Yeah. There was, and then I was, as I was on Reddit, as I was on YouTube, as I was on Google, I started reading people too, of like, people talking about pulling all-nighters, or getting 1 hour of sleep. And then I was like, the positive tried to come out of me and be like, wow, at least I'm getting 5 hours of sleep. At least I'm getting 4 hours of sleep. And, just every day just felt like this brain fog and almost just like legit tunnel vision of like sleep. Like there was nothing else that like even mattered. It sucks too, because it just became, I guess, so dark. Even like with my kids. Sorry.
No, I totally understand, TJ. Yeah.
It's just so hard because I love my kids so much. And like when I was trying to play with them, it's like I couldn't even be present because I'm like, I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And obviously because have been looked in so much to health research and how the body works, I'm like, life is pointless now if I can't sleep.
The survival brain completely takes over, and that's your entire focus. And yeah, so I completely understand. Been there. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And it was just like, totally. And that was so hard, is because I was like, oh my gosh, I am gone. Like I'm not even here. Like I felt dead inside.
Yeah.
I would hate to even say it, like the thoughts of, I never would take my own life, but I would be lying if those thoughts didn't come up.
Yeah. It's really common. Of course, it's really, really common when you're going through something like this, and it's like such a dark period. The survival brain takes over. Our prefrontal cortex, which is our rational, logical thinking brain, it goes offline. So these really scary, dark thoughts come in because that survival brain is programmed. That's its job, is to keep us alive, keep us safe. And so all of those thoughts, even though they're not true, it's the brain's way of trying to protect us. It's a really scary place to be, and you're not alone in that. I went through it too, and almost everybody I've talked to has had a similar experience. So yeah, it's
that
hard.
does make you feel better that other people have experienced that too. And so yeah, so like the worst, darkest thoughts.
Right.
And then it was like I had stages. So there was the first stage of like trying to fix. And then I hit the second stage. And how detailed do you want me to go on my story? Like I just don't
honestly, totally up to you. Your call. Yeah. So let's get a little time frame going on here. So, because this went on for about 8 months. It sounds like you had 2 weeks of just really, really awful. Then you did go to the doctor. Then you saw the therapist, kind of in fix-it mode. So where are we on the timeline about now?
I would say that was probably about 3 months.
Okay.
That whole time frame right there.
Okay.
So, so in these other 3 months, my mind shifted. So my mind it came into this obsessive compulsive of figuring out why it started.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the next stage was even worse. Didn't think it was possible. So this stage was, I was like trying to figure out what it was. So I'm on hormone replacement, like therapy through my doctor, and I've been doing it for 5 years. So my mind was like trying to figure out everything. I'm like, right, maybe my hormones are off. And then she went, got my blood work, everything's fine. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should stop taking this, or maybe I should keep on this. And then there was times where I got off it and then I didn't sleep. And I'm like, oh, it's because I got off it. So I got back on it. So I was literally in this cycle. And then I'm like, maybe it's food. And I was like, I've always drink whey protein shakes. Like, it's the dairy. There's there's heavy metals. So I started eliminating that. I started doing, 24-hour fasts. I was like, my body just needs a detox. I was like, my body needs to go in the sauna. I was like, and so because my thing was, I'm like, why was I perfectly fine and now I'm not? I slept 8 hours for my last, 31 years of living, and all of a sudden I'm not.
Yeah.
And back to what I was saying, when I was looking at people, I'm like, oh my gosh, all-nighters, 1 hour. I was like, I can imagine. I'm super grateful. And there was one night where, oh my gosh, I remember it like crazy. But the one night where, it hit like 3:00, 3:30, and I was like, I can't sleep. And I was like, usually I'm at least sleep by 3 or 3:30. And my doctor did prescribe me trazodone, and the first couple nights it worked great. But then I took it again and didn't sleep. I'm like, it doesn't work. So I stopped for a while. And once 3:30 hit, I'm like, shoot, I got to do something.
Right. Yeah.
So I went and took a trazodone. I think that's what it's called. It's like a 50 milligram.
Very familiar.
Yep. Just sitting there waiting. And next thing you know, it's 4:30. And God, I was like, promised myself to not freaking get emotional.
Oh, please. It's so okay. And honestly, it's genuine. And this community completely knows, and I know. So don't apologize, really.
So I was at my parents' house, and while we were waiting for our house still under construction, 4:30 hit, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't slept like not even 30 minutes. And I was like, I'll just go upstairs, and I have the Wim Hof app, and I was like, I'm just gonna do the breathing techniques. I was like, maybe I'll pass out, and I go upstairs and do the quick breathing and slow down. And then I was like, oh, slow dozing off, and then literally like 2 minutes later, I woke up, and I was like, oh my hell, I was almost asleep.
Yeah.
And then next thing I laid there for an hour just trying to close my eyes, and I was like, just waiting. And then 6:00 hit, and that's when I gave up. I was like, because I get up around 6:30, 7:00, just depends, but I'd say that's my average time. And I'm like, I just pulled an all-nighter. And for some reason that all-nighter enhanced it more. Because I went into I was already in like a survival mode, and now it's like I just didn't sleep for the whole night.
Yeah.
And I went back on Reddit. It was weird. Reddit was a dark place, but I was also addicted to it. It was so weird because I hated it, but I felt like it was my only place for hope to try to find someone that found something.
Yeah.
And then I started mixing some stuff. People were like, try Unisom and that. And I went down the road of, I took Unisom, I took trazodone, I was taking L-theanine, melatonin, trying to just like even mix them. So I'm like, maybe I'll find
trying to find the cocktail, the magic thing. Yeah.
And none of that was working. And then, I just kept trying to figure it out. And then I would say during my journey, I probably had, luckily, probably 4 all-nighters during my 8 months, which was miserable. So the next day I was just figuring out. And then on Reddit, I came across, it was a long post. I wish I could shout the guy out for leading me to this channel, but it was just like, it started off by, he's like, it's just all about the mindset. And then it was seriously so long. And I'm like, wow, what is this? And he's like, it's the way you approach sleep. He's like, talked about how it's like, you're super anxious about it. You focus on it. He's like, but it's really the mind. And I'm like, this is so stupid. Like when I first reading it, I'm like, what do you mean mind, right? And then he kept going. And then he finally dropped some names and he was like, I recommend, everyone on Reddit, if you're looking to check out, he said Daniel and also the sleep school. And I was like, at that point, I'm like, I had nothing to lose. I'm like, so I went and checked it out. And obviously my brain was like, once you feel like, you can't sleep again, I was like, I'm all in. So I went to your guys' app on Instagram. And my first thing, I went on Amazon, I ordered all the books. I went download the app, and then I spent, as much as I went through the whole app as much as I could that it would allow me to, until like you have to do the day by day.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, like this makes sense. And so keep in mind too, so I know I said, so the 3 months for the first stage, 3 months for that second stage. So now we're probably in the end of that 3 months.
Okay. So that's when you found the sleep coach school.
Yeah. I'd probably say even a little bit before that, actually. So I'd probably say about 5 months in.
Okay. Gotcha.
So obviously I went all in. I was watching the videos like this, and I was like, oh, okay. Just, took all the advice, and what's weird was, why the knowledge that made so much sense, it did give me a peace of mind through the day, which helped.
Yeah.
I noticed for a couple of months that I still wasn't sleeping.
Oh yeah.
And so to me, I was like, what the heck? Like, I'm not caring about it. I'm not thinking about it. I'm, like, what's going on? And so that's when I scheduled my first call with the coach, Christian.
Yep.
Yeah. So I first had my first call with Christian, and his advice was so calming. I think when you talk to someone who's been through it, it's so relatable. Because as when you talk to your wife or your family, it's the typical, like, just close your eyes.
Yeah, they don't understand.
Yeah, just rest. Like, it's okay. And so his call was great. And so I took all my notes, and then, for like another month and a half, I'm like, I'm still, I had an all-nighter one time during that month, still falling asleep at 3:00, 2:30 in the morning. And I'm like, man, this is so weird. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then I was like, my boys play comp basketball, and at one of their games, it was bad. I had a panic attack in the middle of the game. I had to go outside because I was just thinking about my sleep. And I was like, at this point, I don't even know what to do. And so I went back online, and then I scheduled a call with Chris. I think it's Chris Carrion, and
Yep. Chris is awesome.
Yeah, so talking to him, and I was like, dude, I don't know I don't know what's happening. And I was like, I've known about the sleep school for freaking 3 months now, and I was like, it's just everyone else is having these recovery stories, and I'm like, there's no hope. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. And he was like, you've only had insomnia for how long? And I told him it was like 6 months or 5 months at the time. And he was like, dude, that's awesome. He's like, I'm so glad that you found this sooner than that. He's like, some people come to me, 10 years in or 15 years in, right? And so I was like, I can't even imagine. And it was one of those things where I almost felt hopeless, I was almost like giving up, because I'm like, and one night when I woke up, I was super sick. I had the flu. And that just made everything worse, because I'm like, I can't sleep and I have the flu right now. What if I continue to not sleep and have the flu? My immune system just gets worse. And surprisingly enough, I just, went on with my day and started sleeping. And just like with the, if I get sick, it is what it is.
Yep.
And then it was like, I don't know what the switch was, but it was almost like, because I was trying to fix it, once I truly not cared about it is when I slowly started coming out of it.
Yep.
So weirdly enough, when I had the flu, I was like, you know what? If I get sick, I get sick. I almost came to a point, I'm like, if I get, early Alzheimer's, if I get heart disease, if I get whatever happens, it happens. So I'm like, if I don't sleep tonight, I don't sleep. I don't care. Mm-hmm. And weirdly enough, those 3 days I had the flu, I went to sleep at 11 o'clock and woke up at, 6 o'clock, 6:30. And I was like, oh, weird. And I continue to keep that mindset that I was like, okay, well, I didn't care. I didn't do anything, and what was hard is the thoughts that came up during insomnia,
sure.
right? Mm-hmm. Of sleep. What if we don't sleep? Hey, are you sleeping? Hey, remember, you can't go to the gym or have fun because you can't sleep. Mm-hmm. And so I started, when those thoughts came, I was just like, I don't care. If I don't sleep tonight, I don't care. I'll continue to go to the gym. I'll continue to eat my good, healthy foods I want. I'll continue to play with my kids. And so we finally moved out of my parents' house and back into our house that we're in now. And I feel like that was where I really saw the turnaround. Mm-hmm. And for people listening, I think the biggest thing was I was waiting to be healed. And I think that was a problem. Because I'm I'm not caring. I'm trying to live my life. I'm doing all the advice that Daniel and, you're giving me and all the people are saying, but I'm not recovering. Why? And then I noticed once I moved into our house, I slowly just, my thoughts slowly disappeared from sleep. Mm-hmm. Now, they'll still come up every once in a while. But it's just I let them be.
Yeah. That's such a good way of putting it, because this is so common, in recovery, right? We do all the things but sleep takes a while to come back, right? It's we have the understanding and the education part and that we are getting, but it's not clicking really deep within, where you got to where you just said at some point something shifted. And I just really was genuinely oh, well, whatever happens. And it's not really tangible how that shift happens, but it eventually does for pretty much everyone I've worked with. Right. And that's the thing. It's over time and over this experience of it being so hard and so awful. But we keep getting through the day and we keep showing our brain that we really are okay. And like you said, you started living your life and doing these things that you wanted to do that were of value to you. And that's what happened first. And then the side effect of that, kind of the sleep starts coming back, as a side effect of living our lives the way we want to live them. It's so weird. It doesn't happen the other way around, right?
It is so true. Yeah. And it was crazy because even, it sucks now too. Cause all the knowledge I have, I know I shouldn't think like this, but I still man, if I would have gone back and if I would have approached those first couple of nights, dang, I've had some bad couple of nights and just moved on.
Right. I know.
That's just where it's crazy because it makes so much sense now of because even there's times where, the other night, what is today? Today's Friday. So I think Wednesday night, I fell asleep at 2:30. I only had 5 hours of sleep maybe, but I'm it was oh, a bad night, move on. And so
exactly.
I didn't have that mindset at first. And it's so weird because it really is a patient game. And I think that's what's so crazy is you have to stop looking. If I would have stopped looking for when I'm going to get better and just accept the moment, it made everything different. Because even now, when nights, if I do notice that I'm oh, it's taking a minute, and then those thoughts start coming, I literally just sit there. I don't even, before I was yeah, you're right.
Start going into the story of it all.
Yeah. Because even the other night, I had the stomach drops, and I was just oh, Hello, stomach drops, right? Hello.
I love that term for it.
Yeah.
I like it better than anxiety because that's what it feels like.
Yeah. But it
Yep.
was like, now then it's like, I just sit with it. And that's what I love about the Instagram post that Sleep School has. Cause it's like, you really do just sit with it. Cause before it was like, I was like on his side 100%. Like, I agree with you. Like something is wrong. Like I've got to fix it. Now it's like, hey, it's like, it's okay. Like just chill, you know?
Yeah.
And me personally, what I've noticed worked for me, I actually didn't like, getting out of bed or jumping on I feel like that makes it worse. So what helped me in my recovery was just laying there, but with my eyes open and finding peace in that moment.
Yeah.
It seems so stressful, but it's like my body knows what my body needs to sleep. So if I sleep 5 hours tonight, great. If I sleep 4 hours, great. If I sleep 8 hours, great. But once you like just accept it, I think that's what everything changed for me. Because I was running away from insomnia, and now I'm like facing it head on. Because even when I got home from the gym, it popped up today. It's like, oh, we don't have a bad night, and I'm like, oh well, if we do, like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's really what recovery is, because it's like over time that attachment lessens, and that's where we find more acceptance. Like and it happens naturally and organically. Like we can't manufacture it. We can't like run from A to Z, right? It's this patient process. It just takes time. And I think that's it's the most challenging part about it, because you just think, why is this still happening? Right. It's like, well, because this is a neural pathway that's developed, and it takes a lot of time to create a new one. And that's really what's happening here. And I just love the way you've explained it. I love the stomach drop. Like I so relate to that feeling,
it's the
awesome.
worst. The stomach drop's the worst too, because it's like they don't let go. Like
Yeah.
it's like one, it's like, okay, what? I'm awake. What do you want? And you start dozing off, and it does it again. It's like, oh my gosh, like stop. And then
these sensations of hyperarousal, and they're different for everybody, but I definitely had those stomach drops, and a whole slew of other kind of sensations as well. But yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. So then you got into the BedTyme app. You had a couple one-on-one coaching, you did the BedTyme, and so then you got back into this house here where you are now, and things started to slowly improve. This attachment lessened, and now and even to this day, it sounds like it's just like, well, whatever happens, happens. Like I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Which is really what it takes. Like that's what it comes down to eventually. Yeah.
Well, and I think what's crazy too, and this is the reason I wanted to share my stories, because mine happened naturally. Mine didn't happen because I chose my mindset. Like when I first started sleep school, I thought, oh, I'm applying these principles. Why isn't it working?
Yes.
Does that make sense? And so I was expecting to sleep the first week. And so like, once I just like naturally happened, that's where it kind of like, it wasn't like, oh, I did X, Y, and Z and now I'm better. It was just, it was a natural progress of like continuing just to, focus on what matters. I mean, even me, like I told you, I'm really big into the gym, and I've always been trying to put on more muscle. To put on more muscle, you have to bulk and eat a lot more healthy food. And I put that all off because I'm like, I have to fix this first. And since I moved into this house, I'm like, I'm going to start bulking. Like, so I went back to things that I stopped doing because I thought, oh, what if, I can't go to the gym on 4 hours of sleep? That's not healthy for me. But it just like naturally came. And I think that's what's kind of cool about it is it'll all work out. Like, and it doesn't seem like it, but
no, it's such a good message, TJ, seriously, because I fully agree. And I talk about this a lot when coaching people. It's like, there's nothing that you have to be, do, or have. Like this is going to happen. This process, it will happen. It's a natural, organic thing. You can't force a mindset, nor can you force acceptance, right? But over time and over like responding differently, like you were saying, sit with it. We kind of refer to that as like, just let it be. Just let it be. It's like the resistance is what creates the struggle. And so over time, though, when we keep responding in this new way, you're right. It's a natural shift.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's cool too, because I mean, I don't know how about you are, but like even me, I mean, I feel like I've been, sleeping super good for, 3 months now. I still have thoughts though. Like,
sure.
That's kind of like what I think too, is like you think that they're just going to totally disappear, but it's like it is crazy on how you react to those thoughts. And I think that's what killed me for all those years. It was like, oh, it's because you're taking this. Oh, it's because you need to get on ashwagandha. Oh, it's this stress, it's because this. And it was the problem solving that I think killed me the most. And so that's what I hope too, that, someone listening to this is like, stop trying to problem solve. That killed me. And then it's,
just so you know too, like that's totally normal too. And we talk about this a lot too, because in our way of teaching, we call it the 2 principles, right? And so the 2 principles are, one, everything that we want, peace of mind, peace of sleep, all of that is effortless. It really is about surrender, letting go, acceptance, all of that. But then this other principle is about survival. And our brain is a survival machine. It's evolved to keep us alive. That's really its only job. And so these 2 kind of principles, these 2 forces are almost juxtaposed, right? They're almost fighting against each other. And that's why recovery is really a dance between these 2 inner states. And that problem solving is part of your biology. That brain that's in survival mode, that's what it knows how to do, is to problem solve, to try to keep us alive. But it's misidentified this as a threat. And so this is why we're saying, this is why we have to respond differently. But we can't control that problem solving biology of ours any more than we control sleep, right? It is part of that biological process. So I always like tell people too, you have to kind of let some of that play out as well, right? Because it's going to happen. We all go through the problem solving stage. And when we land on, because we eventually do, oh, there is absolutely nothing I can do. And eventually that problem solving brain of ours gets to that point too.
Yep. See, and I was just going to go into that too, because I think there was a post I saw on the Instagram app too, that talks about like, give up. Like, and I think that's kind of what happened to me, as I'm like, I'm done. Like, there's nothing I can do. And so like, even when I do get those thoughts, it's like, there's nothing we can do. It's over. Like, we don't, and so I think that's just what's so crazy, is the acceptance part. And at first it's like, it seems literally impossible. I also too, what helped me a lot too was, I watched, I don't know if you've ever seen The Chosen. If you're Christian.
That sounds really familiar. I think I have. Yeah, that
sounds
it's
super cool. It's when so Jesus is just on the mount, and he's just talking about like being. He talks about kind of like, you are more than what your thoughts are, right? You're more than what you eat. And he talks about like being anxious. Like, does being anxious give you an extra hour of your day? And even when I heard that, like, as I was going through it, I was like, seriously, TJ, like, what am I gaining? I think that's what's so hard too, is our brain, like you just said, thinks it's protecting us, but in the way it's like everything is, we're making it worse. We're not gaining an hour of life by trying to solve this problem,
That's right. Because there's actually not a problem to be solved. That's the irony of it all. The paradox. There's just so many paradoxes within insomnia. And that's another one. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's, the natural progress of it. And I watched a video of you and, she's that one girl. She has that accent.
Alina, probably Coach Alina.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love how you guys talked about just like, progress is, there's not an end date, or it's linear. Like that, to me now looking back, it's like, it's so true. I was just always looking for an end date. And I think that was part of my problem. It was like, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe before summer. And it was just the constant monitoring got exhausting. And then
it's so true.
Naturally, I just stopped monitoring, and it's
Yeah, because really, and that's like you said earlier, that really is kind of what recovery is just this acceptance of what is, right? It's like whatever the night looks like, I'm going to be okay.
Yep.
And it is what it is, and I don't have control over that. And I know I'm going to be fine, right? And so that's ultimately what it's about. There's no like, yeah, final destination. There no bells and whistles. It's just this kind of nuanced. I'm okay. I'm okay with whatever.
I'm
And
safe.
that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed too, unlike once I recovered really well, a few weeks in, this was like when I first started sleeping well, I had one of those nights that it was like, took me a while, but it was
Oh
so
yeah,
weird because I woke up and I'm like, I just reminded myself that it's like, TJ, you just got through 8 months of horrible nights. It's like, you're good. And then I
yeah,
just went on with my day and like I approached it just, I don't know, approaching it as a bad night and not identifying yourself with it is the game changer.
right, right. You're
Because it's like,
so that's
oh,
so
I have
true.
insomnia. I can't sleep. And then it's like, oh, I just had a crappy bad night. Oh, I had a crappy couple bad nights. I had a bad week of sleeping. Like, it just is a game changer.
To normalize it, right? Because it's so true. No human has perfect sleep. Like it's just not even a thing, right? It's like the less we can think that that's the way it's supposed to be or needs to look, the so much more freedom we have, right? It's just like, nope, it's going to look how it looks like. I love how you said, sometimes my body needs 5 hours, sometimes 6, sometimes 8. It's like, I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust what my body knows. And I,
Yep.
I love that. I think that's so cool and so important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for sure a dark road. I mean, I was telling my wife during it, I'm like, I don't wish this on my worst enemy.
Oh, I know,
I
right?
was so dark and deep into it. I was like, I would choose to be paralyzed right now. I would choose to have heart disease right now. Like that sounds, and I'm sorry for anyone if that does, but it's like in my mind, that's what I felt at that time because it was like just was so scary. Cause like other things it seems like you can cope with, but I'm like,
Yeah.
and it's
I
so
do know. I remember having very similar thoughts and also thinking like, I wish that it was something that was more physically noticeable because I felt so bad. I'm like, I wish I had a broken leg or something that was actually, you could see that there was something going on. You know what I mean? So I think that's pretty common, pretty normal. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely want to shout out Daniel in his book too. I think my favorite um, my favorite chapter is the one where he explains um, when you're climbing a mountain. If you trip and hit a root, you don't
Yeah.
stop and you don't focus on like
The
why is this
root.
here? What happened? How did this come here? You just get back up and keep climbing the mountain and as hard as it is, I know it's like when I read it, I was in the middle of it, but at the same time, that advice of that is so big.
It's
Even
such a
like
good analogy.
thinking of a tree, right? We're a huge tree, and one little root. It's like that's not going to affect the beautiful tree that we are, and so it's crazy how quick our minds can shift.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. This has just really been so amazing, TJ. I love how you've just explained it so well and walked us through all of it in such a beautiful way. We like to end with 2 questions. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you a couple ending questions. And the first one is if you were to go back to yourself when you were really, really struggling, just deep in the throes of it, is there something you might be able to tell yourself, to kind of buoy yourself up, advice you could give yourself then? And you've kind of already said some of it, but yeah,
Put
just
it all in, yeah, to put it in one. I see what you're saying. It was hard because at first you would think it'd say, I would tell myself everything's gonna be okay. But like I was told that all the time by my dad, by my mom, and I felt like I'm like, no, it's not.
yeah, you didn't believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. And so what I would tell myself is just like really accept it. Um, if I could go back, I would just be like, okay, cool. Like accept it.
Hmm.
I think that's the number one thing. It's like it is what it is. If this is your, even if this is your life, like just, there's nothing you can do about it. I think that would have been everything because I was
Yeah.
pacing for so long.
Yeah, I think that is oh gosh, that's such an important point. I actually did get to a point of that in my recovery too, where it's like, well, if this is my life, if this is what I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life, there could be worse things. Like, I mean, there really could. And I'm going to do the best to live my life the way I want to live, even with this. Right. And I think that was ultimate acceptance and things started getting easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Exactly.
would definitely say acceptance.
Yeah, so good. And then the last question would be, if there were to be a silver lining, sort of a takeaway from having gone through this really difficult experience, what would that be?
I think just to always just how important the present moment is and the power of now.
Mhm.
I read a book called Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's been my
Love
favorite
it.
book for
So good.
even
Mhm.
before this journey. I loved it, and
Same.
yeah, I think it's crazy of how important that is, and to not get robbed of the power of now. There's a saying too on Soul. It's a Disney movie.
Oh gosh, I love that movie.
I know, and when he goes, I waited my whole life for this moment, and I just thought I would feel different. And then she gives the analogy of, the fish going up to the other fish, said, "Hey, I'm looking for the ocean. And do you know where it's at?" He said, "You're in it." And he said, "This? No, this is water." He says, "No, I'm looking for the ocean."
Oh.
And I think that's just a perfect example, right? We're missing life around us if we're not in it, if we're not here
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a big one. That's really huge. I love that.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those nuggets of wisdom. They're so powerful. This was such a good talk, such a good conversation. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
yes, you're very welcome. And anyone out there, just accept and, just keep living your life, go work out,
Absolutely.
go,
Go to the gym.
go to
Go
that
do those
trip.
things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't put off your life. I think that's another big one. Don't put off
I
your
do
life.
too. I think that's such a huge one because we always kind of think, well, I'm going to deal with this and then I'll
Yep.
get to the
Yep.
living part, but it's actually the other way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, TJ. This has been really wonderful and we really appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Allie.
Community, please find us on the sleepcoachschool.com. We're here for you. You can book one-on-ones. You can join one of our programs. We have support for you. So no, you're not alone. Thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I wanted to say thank you to everyone out there who is spreading the word. You know what I've noticed in the last 6 months to 12 months or something like that is when I ask people how they found us, one of the most common answers is somebody told me on Reddit. And every time I hear that, it really warms my heart. It makes me so glad to hear that someone went out of their way to tell a fellow human about the Sleep Coach School. If you're one of those people out there spreading the word, I want to say thank you so much. And if you're not, then maybe you'll see an invitation in doing so, or you can simply hit the like button or hit the subscribe button. That alone helps so much in getting our teachings out there and helping more and more people in the world. That was all I want to say here. Thanks so much for tuning in and can't wait to see you again.